to Somaliland. Somaliland, a country in the Horn of Africa unknown to most of the world, but a country that is referred to as Africa's miracle nation. To understand why, we need to look at the tragic history of Somaliland and how the nation rebuilt itself with little help from the outside world. My name is Abubakar and I've returned to my home country for the first time in almost a decade to understand this story. Speaking to everyone from foreign ministers, local legends, and neighbourhood kids, my aim is to learn about the country's past, understand its present, and envision its future. Oh my brother. Oh my. This is great. Why are they so uniform? These men coming in a regiment. Is that school? Line. Growing up and being from Somaliland, man, it was actually difficult. So explaining it was always difficult. Like, you don't want to say where you're from, and not even people saying where's that, but saying what's that. Fam, it was difficult, man, and explaining it in itself was long. Yeah, no, it used to be part of Somalia, but now it's a semi-autonomous region ever since 1991. It's just a long explanation for a very simple thing, but something that I've always been very proud of, especially now as I'm growing a bit older. And that's why we've done these series of videos, man, to put Somaliland on the map and explain it to people that might not know what Somaliland is. In the heart of the city, President Musa Bihi is returning from diplomatic talks with Ethiopia, greeted by a warm and enthusiastic crowd. Absolutely crazy right now, man. Patriotism is through the roof. You don't see anything like this. One thing you can really feel is that Somaliland feels like one big family. People were chanting Abu Musa, which is Father Musa, the president. And bro, just from what we've been seeing, it's like Edna, she's like a mother or like an aunt. It's like everyone really feels unified because there's a universal experience. One, struggle for recognition, independence, also one of loss and rebuilding. And it really just binds everyone together. You can really, really, really feel that, man. It's just a great feeling. Me and Edna Adan, I remember when I first came here, I didn't have like a list of things that I wanted to do, but one person I wanted to meet was her. She's there.
All right. What language?
Edna Adan is a trailblazer in global health and an advocate for women's rights. Born in Hargeisa, she trained as a nurse and midwife in London, becoming the first Somali woman to study in Britain, and later, the first Somali woman to drive. In 2002, she opened the Edna Adan Maternity Hospital in Somaliland as part of her relentless pursuit to improve maternal healthcare in the country. In 2003, she became Somaliland's first female foreign minister. Edna's humanitarian work has garnered her international acclaim, and she has empowered a generation of young women in Somaliland. We were lucky enough to speak to Edna at the hospital she built about her journey.
My profession, I love my profession, but then everything else I do in life, I think, is thanks to the nursing and the midwifery that I did as my foundation.
She lives on top of the hospital. Like, she absolutely dedicates her life to this, you know, to improving healthcare in Somaliland. She's a woman who's, you know, incredibly well-travelled, then decided to come back to Somaliland. Mad thing. Decided to come back to Somaliland and build, which is something that, you know, that I want to do. I feel like something the diaspora should all aim and strive to do, you know, like travel the world, or you might be disconnected from your homeland, but to eventually come back and do something. And what she's done, built a hospital, built a school, well, that doesn't really get much better than that.
I came back in 1961 after Somaliland, former British Somaliland protectorate, gained its independence from Britain, and 5 days after our country was independent, our neighbors to the east, former Italian Somalia, also gained its independence 5 days later, but eventually, in 1969, on the 21st of October 1969, the communist military coup was staged, led by Siad Barre. So it put the two countries that had united, Somaliland and Somalia, under a communist leadership, which was totally different to the democratic processes that had evolved prior to that. Ups and downs that lasted for a number of years. But in 1981, 82, the differences between the two nations became so intense that a rebellion started in Somaliland. The dictatorial regime of Siad Barre was putting a lot of pressure on the people of Somaliland. It was putting in prison leaderships, people who originated from Somaliland. The businesses in Somaliland were closed. Embassies, of course, were in Mogadishu. Banks were in Mogadishu. The running of the country was all limited to Mogadishu. And then, of course, when in 82, 83 the war started, it was an all-out war against the people of Somaliland. It was nothing short of genocide. It was nothing short of ethnic cleansing. School children were taken from schools and just bled to get them as blood donors, to transfuse the military soldiers who were wounded in the war at that time. Civilians were put into mass graves, rounded up and shot. Genocide, mass killings took place. And of course, many mass graves come to surface now. Each time it rains, the topsoil gets washed away, and we discover to this day mass graves that contain the bodies of civilian innocent victims who were put into those mass graves. Horrible. Things that should not happen. Aeroplanes were taking off from the airport where you landed when you arrived in Hargeisa. MiG aeroplanes were taking off, full of weapons and bombs, and just dropping those bombs on the city of Hargeisa.
We're here at the Hargeisa War Memorial. If there's a monument or a symbol that represents the struggle of Somaliland and its people, this is it. In the late 80s, there was complete artillery bombardment by the Somali Air Force. The planes took off from Hargeisa's airport and completely bombed the city day after day after day. To put into perspective, it's like the Royal Air Force taking off from Heathrow and completely bombing London day after day after day. It's just completely unfathomable. In school, do they teach you about this plane?
Every school lagu baraa ana artay school return waxa lagu baraa in diyaaradda khalkan saaran ahayd diyaaradda ka kacday airport Hargeysa kadib dib ugu soo noqotay Duqaysi ka waa lagu baraa artay school way garanayaan.
Over 48% of Somaliland's population is under the age of 14. Whilst these children are too young to have experienced the war, they are aware of the country's history.
waxaan horta xog ku maqlay wadankan dhiig loo soo shubay oo rag maanta xagan naftoodii noo horeen maanta xagan ku joognay
oo madax banaanidiisa dalka Ingiriiska ka qaatay wadan markii hore dalka Ingiriiska gumaysan jiray madax banaanidiisana ka qaatay in 60kii markii 60kii uu ka qaatayna wax isku beereen dawladii Soomaaliya loo jiray
magaca Somaliland si ful laguma keenin Somaliland saasa laga soo dhex saaray Somaliland si laguma helin dad baa dhiigooda shubay dhuuxoodii dad u shubay أنا وحلاني Somaliland ما تقدر نبدي عنا وسوقني.
وصل لي كده حين اسمها إيريا دني وإيريين هو عنصر Somaliland مكلا تشوفه. ديار هكذا صار هكذا صار أنا وين بيلا ده هاي. وكا هالكلام مركب برجع هرسة وما جسنا كده ستيت وكلين سنة كقصو مارمها هكذا ومحرمين اللي يهيب اللي يجري وكا يمن جري وتحينا كان كده كده جري وكان هنا كده جري دوش شيء جري وحيوان جري كا ودوسوار كي بنحينه waxay meel dadka isku yimaadaan marka halkan waa marka diyaaraddu dhowr hab marad badan baa la bedelay laakiin meesha laga ma qaadin waayo waxay calaamad tahay dad badan oo reer Somaliland ay ku dhinteen oo diyaaraddu leysay waxaana leeynay waa dawladii ay markaa ku hoos noolaayeen eelka moodayeen ay yimaadeen baa leynaysay marka waxay sababtay markaa in maxay diyaaradda ay ku leysay.
But now it stands here as a reminder of Somaliland's past and a symbol for a brighter future.
A government at war with its own people. That's a report written by American Human Rights Watch. There are reports that were written about those genocides. Amnesty International wrote many reports. And then in 1991, the freedom fighters of Somaliland finally ousted the troops of Siad Barre.
And I remember my parents telling me stories of war and how the war was just overnight, and just hearing them stories as a kid, but you can't really picture it or you can't really understand it, and I never really did until now. So if you find any old person on the street, they've most likely experienced the war and they fought in the war, just normal men bearing arms. Even the local outdoor cafe where war veterans come to enjoy their tea becomes a rich archive.
dagaalku soo la yaab ma hoo iska la yaabkana soo maray aad ugu badnaa marka ugu dhacday marka maalmo badan bay noogu daray Gebile waan ku dhaawacnay magaalada Burcalayna waan ku dhaawacnay Hargeysa waan ku dhaawacnay Kalabadh waan ku dhaawacmay marka ilaa 5 meelood 6 meelood waan ku dhaawacmay Hargeysa 3 goor baan ku dhaawacmay xasan mar baynu ku wada dhacdayba marka waxaan kula talinayaa dhalinyaradan 90kii wixii ka dambeeyay dhashay taariikhda raacdeeya si ay u ogaataan meeshan wixii loo soo maray meeshan hadii la yiraahdo siinay dee hanti iyo dhiig iyo rag iyo dhacaan iyo Maxamed Umar Cismaan baa la yiraahdaa shoon baan ku magac dheer dawladda Siyaad Barre deeman ku haysatay dalka waxa ahaa dal ay niman kale oo talisi haystaan oo dadka iyo dalka iyo dadkaba iyagu dee maamulo oo say rabaan ka yeela
War was an incredibly complex, it's an incredibly complex issue, but it was a genocide at point blank. It was a genocide. So everyone had to fight. Whilst in Somaliland, I found that the toothbrush seller is someone who's both everywhere and yet somehow anonymous. Wandering the streets of Hargeisa every day is no surprise that he has stories to tell.
burburkii Maxamed Siyaad Barre ina yaro kurayaan ahaa halka wax ka maqan laba farood labada farood waxa igu go'een dagaalkii ay nagu soo qaaday faqashtu yaqaanaan cidii maaragtay ay deewaaga dagaalku wuxuu noo saameynta dadka u geystay iyo dalka cid waliba way taqaanaa maanta dalku burbur uma baahna nabad baynu ku joognaa cadaygaas iibiya maanta cadayga haddayna nabadi jirin maanaan iibineen ragid kuraydii daba socdaan ahaa faraasa iga go'ay nin arbush loo dhan jiro dhakhtarkii aslamta ah ayaa faraha iga daweeyay habar yoonis boo
marka dadkii dhulka deganaa markii ay arkeen dhacdooyinka socda waxaanu hayn dhalinyarada iskaga baxday hawl qabatay tan waxay noqotay deem laga soo dagaalamay in la tago aslamto markaa lagu sameeyay hawl laga sameeyay reserve area Itoobiya gudaheeda ayaanu tagnay marka halkaas laga soo dagaal bilaabay intii dadka la ururinayay halkaas la isku urursanayay sanadtuna waxa 2000 ka yar bay marka laakiin reer miyiga deena la socday baa ciida ka badaa
All the Russian communists donated military hardware, the tanks, the MiGs, all these military things needed spare parts, needed maintenance, and once Siad Barre broke relations with Russia, all these machines became redundant, no longer functional, no longer airworthy, no longer useful, and they were just abandoned.
جماعته الرسمة نهين إبراج شيء حسن جنيو تليه يجي أبا هرجيسها أنا أقول لكن برعانها 1980 طبعا تكنيكا يستاهل بقولون نبغى نخوض ولا برعو أفرتن قاريو من كنت قفز ده برعمر كانوا قال لي ليه الصبح نبغى قال لي خويه طبعا كيبا حوج جد مقالي وانو هيسن حيرنا قالوا تيمو يعني مركا الحمد لله ده وحياة بدنا خطرة أيام صومري وإلهي نجنوا لي rag badan oo wada soconay de waxba maanta kama harin rag badan oo maalinta ay noogu dareeyay la kunka iyo 200 in naga dhinteen haddaan ka soo qaato maalintii jiifaaga iyo seexatay iyo sirri Axmed afartan ba iyo aniga shantan baan uga ku sareero afartii kala booy maalintaas ciida hoos mareen
You can see they're not bonded by the trauma or the experiences of war, but bonded by what they were fighting for, which was an independent and recognized Somaliland and a better life. And that's kind of what they're experiencing now. But it's really, really important to understand the history in order to shape the future of Somaliland.
And then in 1991, once we cleaned our country of the foreign invading troops from Somalia, we started bringing our people back from refugee camps in Ethiopia. We started rebuilding the country. We started finding family members who became scattered together, and we started rebuilding our country. We built it to where it is today, without international support, without international aid, without anybody giving us much of an assistance to rebuild our country. Somaliland was rebuilt by Somalilanders.
adaygaasi waxa weeyaan wax la yiraahdaa ilka cadeeya la yiraahdaa afgonaajiya la yiraahdaa ilkuhu dawo u yahay adaygaasi wax la yiraahdaa waa caday madooba la yiraahdaa wax la yiraahdaa ka wanaagsan koolgeed iyo burush iyo waxay gaala keentay waa cadaygii dalkeenna udgoon sunnihii nabi maxamed weeye calayhi salaatu wasalaam ee nabiga ku cadayday sunnaha iyaan laga tagin hal la qaataan leeyahay cadayga wanaagsan.
He's a good seller, I can't lie. He sold it to me, sold it. Try to say the Prophet used to use this. Man, you can't complain about that. If he says the Prophet used to use it, you have to buy it.
Somaliland was rebuilt by its people. The people who, like your parents, fled the country, fled the bombs, moved to Canada, America, the United Kingdom, Europe, and eventually sent back support for the peoples and the families they left behind. You were probably born in the UK, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Your family fled the country because of the war, because of the bombs.
Yeah. SBI, or Somaliland Beverages Industry, is Somaliland's largest drink company and is headquartered in Hargeisa. Founded by Ahmed Osman Gele in 2010, the SBI Factory is one of the country's biggest investments, with the $17 million production plant opening in 2012. We were lucky enough to be given an exclusive tour of the factory and see how they make their fizzy drinks. I'm not sure about this dinner lady look, but charge it. How come I'm not wearing it? So we're here in the main production plant. This is where all your favorite drinks, your Fantas, your Cokes, your Sprites, they're made from scratch. So the ingredients are harvested, the formula is made, and then they're put in the bottles, and then the labeling is done and they're ready to be shipped. It's a crazy process and it's crazy to experience right now.
So here we prepare the final syrup.
Final syrup.
Yeah, final syrup is transferred into the line.
Yeah. This is what a Fanta or a Coke bowl looks like before it's blown up. Pretty crazy to see.
Now you see, this is the preform. Preform are going into the following machine. This is called the motor machine. It contains cooling section, heating section, and blowing section. Heating section, it's making the preform hot, and we are using high pressure air. This is the conveyor.
Yeah, conveyor.
The speed, control speed, you know. So the quality controller is checking when we blow the bottle. He's taking bottles into the lab. It's also checking the CO2, the gas inside. Are we within the specification?
We as quality controller, we make sure that each product which we prepare here, they are according to world standard. In fact, this is Coca-Cola. I'm here last 3 years. Yes, this is 30 years.
So what was your expectation when you first came to the country? Because the documentary we're doing is about the country and the different industries and stuff. So what did you expect?
When we hear Somaliland, so first thing is, what is Somaliland?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, yes. And this is a new country.
Yeah.
Here.
So before you didn't know, 3 years ago?
No, never. I came here, before that I was like little cautious that what type of country, because we know about Somalia. Somalia, they are also brothers, but there's some disturbance.
Yeah, instability, yeah.
I came here, from the first day, I felt the difference.
Yeah.
So up to now, we are very happy, and even the people here, living here, they are very lucky, and it's also one of the best country, one of the most patriotic people of this country.
Yes,
they are really good. They love their country. They are peaceful. They deserve better resources, better recognition from the whole world, so they can grow, and they deserve the opportunity. So even for us, we are here. It's one thing is job, but the other thing is to train and educate the local people so they can grow up and they can work in the industry. Because SBI, this is they took the first step. They are the first big FMCG group here, but this is not the last.
So that's it, that's the end of the production line. If you come here, see the thousands of crates. Literally not even exaggeration, thousands of drinks, probably 1,000 only here. If you come across here, you've got your Sprites, Fanta Apple. These are quite rare in the UK, you know, these are one of my favorite. Classic Fanta Orange, your Cokes, and your waters. This is quite surreal, this is actually crazy. Hours and hours of drinks. I don't know what, this is clearly what you should expect from a factory, but it's still crazy to see. Mad. It's like 1,000 Fantas right there. Can't leave a Fanta factory. Our favourite drink, taste test. Fresh. So after all that process, taste test, pass. Sensory test.
And today, Somaliland has political parties, has parliament, has an upper house, has an elected civilian, you know, president elected by the people.
Obviously, you know I've got access. No playbook, you know I've got access to the country, right? So of course you have to speak to the foreign minister. Not a lot of people are getting access like that. 1 second. We're here, Ministry of Foreign International Affairs today. We're here to speak to the foreign minister. I'm going to ask him a couple questions about the development of Somaliland and will recognition ever be achieved? Let's go. So we're here with Dr. Isa Kate, Foreign Minister of Somaliland. Thank you very much for speaking to me today. Somaliland meets nearly all the criteria to be a country. It has a permanent population, a defined territory, a government. Why hasn't Somaliland been recognized internationally?
Well, because initially when Somaliland became independent in 26 June 1960, we voluntarily joined Somalia, which is Mogadishu, and that union has failed. So instead of us sitting in the UN seat, they're actually occupying our space in the UN seat. So Somalia is claiming Somaliland to be part of it.
Dr. Isa, he has an incredibly difficult task in it. Because one thing being a foreign minister, striking up deals and traveling the world, but having to do that when your country isn't actually recognized is absolute mammoth of a task.
2005 African Union fact-finding that came to Hargeisa. They've seen that Somaliland qualifies to be recognized, but the only issue was when we asked other foreign countries to recognize Somaliland, they have always asked us to have first African countries to recognize us. So we did start with Ethiopia. In Somaliland today we have the representation of at least 6 different countries. Taiwan is one of them that recognizes Somaliland, but they have their own issue, which is the recognition of themselves and the split from China. We do have an important embassy from Ethiopia. Now we're pushing for the real recognition of Somaliland.
100%. What are the reasons as to why African countries have not recognized Somaliland?
Because they are afraid, or they think that if they recognize Somaliland, it'll be a sort of Pandora box where so many other African countries will decide to disseminate and display from each other.
Why should a country that has no links to Somaliland recognize it? What do they benefit from it?
Somaliland has a lot of potential. Somaliland has a lot of natural resource. Somaliland has a port, a major port, a very modern port called Berber Port. Somaliland is a democratic country. On the other hand, Somaliland is geographically located in a very strategic area. That will attract a lot of people, whether it's for investment or whether it's also for other opportunity.
In Somaliland, a lot of the people in the world think that Somaliland is part of Somalia. So if Somaliland is looking for independence and recognition, doesn't it make the most sense for Somalia to be the first country to recognize it independently, and then that will just cascade across the rest of Africa?
Yeah.
Does that seem legitimate? Is that likely to happen?
Yeah, well, that's we have had rounds of talks, and that's exactly what we've asked Somalia, is to seize this claim that Somaliland belongs to Somalia. In fact, it doesn't, and what we'd like to see is like having Somalia recognize Somaliland. Yes, we would like to split. Yes, we would like you to recognize us. Yes, we'll be two countries, two neighbors that, like Kenya, Djibouti, Ethiopia, that cooperate in all sense, and then that'll be for the greater good of both people.
Amazing. All right, Dr. Hargeisa, thank you for speaking to me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I feel like a common theme between sort of like the prolific people in Somaliland is their generosity and sort of like their hunger to give back. And that's what the people of Somaliland are. They're builders. I really think it's in their blood. Even for me, man, I'm traveling the world doing these documentaries with no money, but it's in order to build a platform to have a voice. And I think, where did this desire come from? Because I could go and just work for the BBC or something if they give me a job, but I have no desire to, because my desire is to build something for myself. And I have to ask myself, is that inherent? Is that intrinsic? Is that in my DNA? And now I'm starting to think, yeah, it actually is. And the reason why I think it's intrinsic and part of me is because my parents had to do the same. They saw their country and their city demolished, and they had to rebuild it. Then they had to travel the world and, live and, make do with what they had. And now they eventually want to come back. And I feel like it's in me. It's in my blood to build. It's in the blood of people to smile and to build. That's what unites us. We've got that building gene,
But with a background that is Somaliland, you have a lot to be proud of. Somalilanders have achieved what very few other African nations have been able to achieve. But it's for you to continue to build Somaliland, to become educated, to become professionals, to become people who will continue to run this country in a fair, democratic, professional way. Don't get carried away by the media and all the media politics. The reality is, you have visited, you have seen Somaliland. We have made this. I built this hospital. I built that university with my resources, and at times when I needed help with support from the business people in Somaliland. Look after it. Don't let it fall into the wrong hands. Build on it, improve on it, better it, keep working for it, keep working on it. It's yours, protect it, look after it.
Somaliland has emerged from the shadows of its tragic past, guided by the likes of Edna Adan, whose own story mirrors the rebirth of the nation. It's remarkable how his people have managed to rebuild a country from rubble.
waddankuna de waa maskax mooyaan maskax la isdheeri mooyaan waddankan gediisu maskax la isdheeri Somaliland oo nabadiyo bashbashi barwaaqo waxaan rajaynayaa Somaliland abidkeeda ha waarto Somaliland.
Through the scars of conflict to the aspirations of its youth, Somaliland's tale is one of perseverance, hope, and an unwavering quest for recognition.
waxaan leeyahay Somaliland dadkan aqoon waa inay aqoonsadaan Somaliland inay dal jira tahay dad jira tahay ay Soomaaliyana ay ka go'an tahay oo la yaqaan inay aqoonsadaan baan ayaan ugu sheegaya waxaynu leenahay bad baynu leenahay haddii la bad bay aan ku too bad baynu leenahay xoolahaynu caan ku nahay geel baynu caan ku nahay adhi baynu dhoofinaa geel baynu dhoofinaa xoolaha la dhoofiyay caan ku tahay Somaliland aniga xaggan ka joogo.
This is a story of a land and its people hidden from the rest of the world, but one that I am proud to be a part of. I am from Somaliland, and the story is just beginning.